Welcome to this introduction to the third lab, or the third module actually. There are some things that you should know before you begin, at least begin the lab. Uh, this module will cover DNS and web servers in the lab. The DHCP we won't configure in the lab. It's quite easy to configure, and we actually can't do it in a proper manner in our lab environment, since OpenStack wants to handle the addressing itself, so we can't use the DHCP or configure it. We are using DHCP all the time. I have published this new section lecture, and these two lectures are actually from another course, System Administration 1, which I'm teaching here in Kalmar. But the information in these would be the exact same for you. And here you have the presentation and the recording from that. So you just click on that and then you go through this lecture. They are around 2 hours, I think, together. And this will help you also with the study material as in the seminars. But you should watch those before. And in the lab, I've also linked to reference demos. These demos are done for that other course, also as you see here, System Administration 1. So you can't take everything that I say that might not be applied for this course. So like in, I think it's this first one, I recommend that you should buy a domain name. You should not do that. You will be able to register your domain name within our system. I will come to that later on. But these are great demos and really hands-on on how to configure and set up name servers. So I really recommend that you watch these, all of these videos. The first two are about name servers, and in this first one, we also look at this command nslookup, which is a really good command that you should know when you are managing name servers. And here I will talk about public name servers and how you can set that up. In this demo, I will configure, let's see, actually the domain that you are going to be using, but I'm using it for the top level, sort of say. It's the DevOps lab.xyz domain that I'm configuring here. You will configure a subdomain under that. But other than that, you will probably use the same configuration as I am having here. The next two demos are about Apache web server. And the first one is about installing it, and the second is about how to configure and setting up a site. So in the lab, you can see it here. You will set up this environment. So the LAN is the exact same. We won't be configuring anything in the LAN. You will use the file server that is set up in the previous lab. And we will add one web servers and two name servers. These two name servers will serve your domain, and this one, your domain name dot the DevOps labs dot xyz. So if I am and should ask a question for, let's say, www dot your domain name, your username dot DevOps lab dot xyz, your name server should answer, even if I'm anywhere in the world. It shouldn't matter. So you will be able to access your website from anywhere in the world when you have configured this correctly. So when you set up your name service, you need to go to a special site to register it. And this is how you actually would do it in a real scenario when you will buy a domain name. Then you will go to some registrator that sells these domain names. But the procedure is about the same. You will have to enter your name servers there. So if we go to www.devopslabs.xyz, we'll come to this name server manager. So this is the site I have created. So you can log in, and here you will use the credentials that you have in the lab environment. It's the same that you can get from the course homepage. So it's not the LNU password, it's the password that you got from this site. Down here you have your login credentials. So when you enter this, you only come to one very easy page. Here where it said student or student, you should have your login name. So that should be your, and then you have to correctly configure this before you hit submit. You won't have any IP addresses. So if I enter another IP address that doesn't work, I should get an error. And this error can help you make out what's wrong, what you have configured wrong. You can see this is actually from the nslookup command. So this is the command that I have run on the servers to check if your site is correctly configured. And as you see, the command failed because that server doesn't answer in the correct manner. Sometimes you can have to, if you are really sure that you have configured correctly, you can try to submit a couple of times because I have set down the timeout and the retry to just 1 second, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer for the server to answer. But if you're correctly set up, you should just get this changes have changed. So then you should have your name server should be registered so that you can answer questions for your domain name. And if you have changed something, then the IP address for some reason have changed, then you can come back here and change it. You can't, however, delete the records. I haven't set that up because if you try to do that, you will get some errors because it will check that they have valid IP addresses. You should also know that you can't use any other IP address than that are within our namespace. So if you set up your name servers on another public IP addresses, it won't go. If I try to, this is a valid IP address, but it will say that it's not a valid IP because it's not in our span. It's not a IP address that we use. So you need to set that up in our lab cloud environment. So before you, even if you have gotten the floating IP registered, you need to have the name servers correctly configured before you try to submit these IP addresses. And that's because I will make checks that is correctly set up before it will be submitted and saved to my name server. But I will. It's written in the lab, so that in what order you should do it, so it shouldn't be a problem. I think that's it for this introduction. If you have any troubles or problems, use Slack or email Petko. As I have seen in the previous week, there are a lot of you that haven't finished the Lab 2, and I think that's probably because you think that you will be able to create the entire environment during the lab sessions. Most of you won't be able to do that. You need to spend a lot more time than just lab sessions. So the good thing about our lab environment is that you can use it from home. You need to spend at least uh, 10 to 15 hours a week on just the lab, I think, to make the deadline. So please don't just use the lab session. The lab sessions are for you if you get stuck and need help, and for the uh, examination, of course. Okay, that's it for this demo. Good luck with the lab and this third module.